Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Presence podcast. I'm delighted today and honored actually to be here with my guest, Dr. Norma Hollis. She is the godmother of authenticity. So I can't wait to get into this. So, as we know, or may not know, studies indicate that individuals who really are able to embrace their true selves tend to experience better psychological and physical well-being, right? So suppressing our authentic selves can lead to significant stress, and it really disconnects us from who we are and our genuine creative expression. And so what I want to talk about today is how that plays out in life and business, especially among women of color, professional women of color, right? We're going to really dive into this thing, and having the godmother of authenticity herself. There's no other authority, right? I talk about authenticity, but baby, I ain't 30 years in the game studying this thing. So I appreciate her spending the time with us today to really, really dig deep into this. Just to give you a little bit of background, Dr. Norma Hollis is a change agent who impacts the world in multiple ways. She writes programs for human development around the theme of authenticity and turns them into training process to deepen self-awareness and expand consciousness of individuals and organizations. Her work is based on 30 years of research in human nature from personal, professional, and lifestyle perspectives. Norma and her programs offer a fresh approach to life, living, and leadership. And she grew up in Detroit just like me. Welcome.
Thank you, homegirl. It's good to be here with you.
Absolutely. I am so ready for this. Okay. So I want to first just start off by talking a little bit about how you got into this work. It's such a specialized niche area, and you're so passionate about it. You have a whole framework about it. Like you went to school about it. Like, how did this all start?
Well, I kind of have a belief that all of us are here on the planet for a purpose with an assignment to do. And so this I see as my assignment. It became very clear to me when I was 28. And that's when I realized I had done everything my parents had said do. I had the husband who had a good job. I had a good job. We had money in the bank. We had cars. We had a house. We had all those things that say will make you very happy. And I was miserable. And I was miserable because I married the wrong person. Didn't know who I was and didn't know what I needed to be doing. I didn't know who I was. And that's when I just dropped out, so to speak, and decided to start examining me. And what I started by looking at feeling, I have the gift to be able to feel in a different way, to feel the energies that I felt within me. And I identified 9 different energies. I gave them each the name of an animal, did some research into astrology, numerology, and a lot of other things, and put together a grid like the one you see behind me, but rather than the words you see, it had the words of animals. And then I spent the next 30 years taking that grid of 9 animals and understanding what I had put together there. And that in 30 years turned into the grid that you see behind me. So it was, and there were some things that happened before 28 and that are continuing to happen that continue to reinforce that I truly am on my purpose. And so now that's what I help other people do and teach them to discover and what their purpose is and to begin to do it and to cash in on it. So it's a process. I took a concept and began to develop it by being guided by my inner voice as my purpose. And it ain't been easy, mind you, but it's really making a difference. It's really making a difference.
I love that. You talked about following your inner voice and purpose. I think a lot of us are lost, unfortunately, and I didn't realize it until I started doing this work and really focusing in on our community.
Yes.
This is a widespread issue, and I always say we kind of have like a identity crisis going on,
Yeah.
and it's because we're not staying true to who we are and honoring that.
Well, let me tell you how that begins. I've had 3 careers. I've been a pioneer in 3 different industries, And the first was early childhood, which is where I have my degree. And I've learned, having that foundation helps me to put things I learned later in perspective. So one of the things that happens, it just happens, is that we lose our authenticity before the age of 5. And
Mm.
there's two causes for that, two primary causes. One is that as infants, we have to acquiesce to our parents. So we cry because we're hungry, we cry because we're wet, we cry because we get attention, whatever. But we have to learn another way of communicating eventually, because the crying just doesn't get it for so long. So the crying may be authentic for us, and it might be necessary that we stop crying, but that's just the first experience that we have of the feeling that we have of acquiescing to something else. That make sense? Okay, so now we go to our preschool years. Now, in the preschool years, we go to the classroom, and when we're very first times going, and we're so excited once we get comfortable, and we realize, golly, I can sing, I can play the drum, I can do artwork, I can do this, and I can do all these things. I'm so excited, right? And then I rush home and I tell mommy, guess what? I can sing. I start singing. I draw on the wall. And I just keep talking and talking. And mommy says, look, baby, I had a long day and I'm tired. Why don't you just go watch TV and I'll catch up with you later? Or something like that. And you've probably done that as well.
I
Not
have.
realizing that what's happening is that with that child's enthusiasm, but look what I learned about myself. And this is my authenticity. That's not the word they use, of course, but that's what they're telling you. And you say, no, I can't take that right now. I can't
Mm.
take authenticity. And the child starts getting back and starts putting on a mask or the layers of onions, that go on over the years. So that after a while, you don't realize that you're there. Even to the point that when you transfer from preschool to kindergarten in first grade, where you could come in and pick what you want, finger play, domestic, play, run, whatever. Now you got to sit in your chair. And you got to hold your hand up if you want to go to the bathroom and hold it, just like you have to teach a dog how to hold it. We all have to do that. But I mean, it's necessary, mind you. But there's ways to do things that are necessary that are not so mentally health, psychologically damaging. And it's not
Mm.
that they're hugely damaging, but they begin a pattern that a child doesn't always know or doesn't know that they're forming to deal with the situation. And those patterns 10, 20 years later don't serve you anymore, but you still got the pattern. And it's
Yeah.
very hard to remove. And not only do you have that pattern, you have more masks you put on or onion layers that have come on you that the you is hidden, be down there somewhere. But now you maybe have babies or you're working and you got car notes and rents and mortgages and whatever, and you can't stop. So you're just putting on more masks because when you get to a work environment, I had my second career was a speaker bureau. I had so many people that came to me and said, I've been in the workforce now 20, 30, 10, 20, 30 years. I've lost myself because I had to be who they wanted to be. I want to find
Mm.
myself again. And so those of you who are listening, probably one or more of these may resonate with you. So in our quest, in the need to gain income, and the sooner you have babies and you have long-term obligations, the sooner you fall in this trap, the more you have to work in order to do that. And then the more you work and then they tell you, they meaning ads and what have you, life is better on this side with more money. Come over here and get more money over here and do this and buy this car, and you buy it hook, line, and sinker. And next thing you're borrowing money to pay money. And that's a pattern that is hard to get out of because they also encourage you, for economic sake, you need to go into debt. You need credit cards, you need this and you need that. So you really have to be aware and listening and a little wiser on your decisions because every decision you make has a consequence and you can't always see it. But once you understand that, you'll start to evaluate differently so that you
Mm.
make your decisions more thoughtfully. Because, folks don't tell you this stuff. You know how they tell you how great it is to have a baby and you realize, well, gosh, dang, do I get a chance to sleep?
Lord.
So I'm the godmother, right? I'm gonna try to tell you the truth, so you can prepare yourself. No, you can't change the world; it needs changing without a doubt. I mean, we can't change it collectively, but it's hard to do by yourself. But you can change your position in the world with the right, with more wisdom and more thoughtfulness in your decisions, and not just doing stuff because it feels good, looks good, or someone else told you to do it, but
Mm,
really to yourself and what's really authentic for you.
mm. Ooh, you said so much. Okay, so I yeah, I want to go back a little bit because it's like that pipeline from right as children, you go to school, you get in line, like you said, and then that carries through to the work that you do. So how can you break away from that? Or can you? Like how is it like how can we break that? At what point is the ideal time to break that? When we're grown, when we're still in school, like how young can we break that?
The ideal time is for parents to help their preschoolers know themselves. Because if you get on that journey of lack of self knowledge early, you do become like a robot. Because in that they draw you into it, they draw you in. I mean, how many of you had babies before the age of 20, before you really even knew what you were doing? Because somebody drew you in, or didn't tell you the boundaries, or didn't help you understand what the difference is. But the older you get, the wiser you get, hopefully. And excuse me. So helping your young children and grandchildren to be raised by their gifts,
Mm,
and to talk to them about their feelings and help them understand ways to manage their feelings. If you look at one of the big challenges we have in society now, in my opinion, is that we don't teach children. There's no structured organizational way. I hate to say institutional, but there's not enough respect on the self, that so we don't teach people self. If you type things and you use the word self referring to someone, the changer will always put yourself, so or themselves, but not self as you as an individual. And self-awareness is what I'm going at, because no one teaches in our journey through adulthood self-awareness and what that is required. Now, I'm thinking about my grandson right now, who I just saw in Detroit last week, and he was raised by his paternal grandmother, and she did a good job of giving him the inner voice and what have you. But now that he's about to be 22, he wants to be an entrepreneur. And of course, I gave him cards when he was 4, calling him an entrepreneur. So he kind of stuck a little bit, a little persuasion, if you will. But there's no one in Detroit that can help him with that, because in Detroit they've all had jobs. And when you say business and creative, it scares them, because that means you can't get a full time job and make a money, as an executive or something. But everybody's not fit for that. So,
right.
really helping your children know what they're fit for and helping raising them for it, looking at what you're fit for. In my generation, it was like going to computers because that's where the money is. And now they're probably telling you go into artificial intelligence. That's where the money is. And while that may be true, that number one may not be what you're suited for, and number two may not be the best thing for humanity in the long run, which is a whole nother conversation. So these are things your generation has a lot of things to consider and think about, because every action and decision that you make now really impacts the future of all of us. Particularly directly your family and your children and grandchildren, but beyond that, society as a whole. Because if society as a whole continues to do very little to really initiate change. As a matter of fact, the prediction that's out now says that by if we continue like things are going now, by the year 2053, 29 years from now, the black median income will be zero.
Mm,
Zero. It's about 18,000, which is low enough as it is, but it would get down to zero. And so conscious decisions, conscious thinking, wisdom thinking, forward thinking, prediction almost, if you will, but at least giving some thought to, if I do this today, how's it going to affect me, my family, my children, my community, society as a whole? Because every action has some kind of reaction. So we need to be more thoughtful about what we're doing and what decisions we're doing, how we're thinking, how we're communicating, the things we're doing.
mm. Wow. Now we may have to take this offline, but I I have a creative son. Going back to what you're talking about it starts with the parents, right? I have a
Yes.
very creative son, and I'm learning how to nurture that because I'm not that. I mean, when I tell you creative, he'll watch a game on YouTube and then he'll go and create the game on his coding stuff. He's 11 and it blows my mind. And I'm like, am I equipped enough to do my part to make sure that he's able to grow and flourish in his gifts?
What
And
you
so, like
are,
I said, that
you
that's that may be another conversation on.
no, no,
But
others may be in the same situation. So you're wise enough to recognize he has this gift. So all you have to do now is to be wise enough to help him develop it. Okay.
okay,
So you may not be the one. Authenticity doesn't mean trying to be someone you're not. So you would not be the authentic. It would not be the best idea for you to teach him more because it's not your expertise.
right,
But to go somewhere to a college counselor, a college professor, a college dean of students, or something like that, or even Google. What's the best way for my 11-year-old to learn coding? Or what kind of careers are involved in coding, and what are the options? But if for all of you, what you want to really think about for careers for yourselves and your children are careers that support your creativity, because intellect now is pretty much, I won't say used up, but artificial intelligence is taking it over in so many ways.
mm,
And we're glued on these phones, that we have. And I always ask students when I talk with them, how many of you know your parents' phone number, your mama's phone number, rather than having you the phone? So I said, if you lost your phone, how are you going to reach your mama if you don't know her number? Because this has made us, it's stupid. Okay. So they call the TV the idiot box, but this is really what it is because we become so dependent on it for phone numbers, for directions, and so many things that we
everything.
just have to think our way through. So what happens when you have to really think and
Mhm,
really go deep and make a decision? How do you know how to do that? How do your
mhm.
children know how to do that? I have an uncle, I think he just died recently at 97, but he raised his children by having them sit down. He had four of them sit down and spend 30 minutes just thinking. Just think. Because they don't teach you how to think in school. They teach you how to memorize and
Yeah,
repeat. They teach you how to be a robot. They teach you how to get a robot type life. They don't teach you how to make a difference in the world, to really use your ingenuity, your own creativity, your own brains, your own ideas to move life along. And actually, when you really look at it, it's the black creativity that's often mimicked everywhere you go. Music, clothes, you see that a lot. So
yeah.
um, use that for your own benefit.
Mhm.
But you got to learn how to do that because it's a system and it's a game. And there are others that are very sharp at the game, but that doesn't mean you can't learn the game and do it in such a way that your child can benefit for their future,
Mm,
for yourself.
yeah,
And if you're not happy in your current job, then that's what you want to think about doing. How can you transition to something that you really enjoy? Because if I can turn a concept like authenticity into a business, you can do something like that too.
ooh,
It's not easy, but I was committed and it happened. And it's
yeah.
and it's about to explode in some ways, which I'm really excited about. So, but
Well,
it's okay.
I feel like it's already exploded. I didn't see you on stage with Les Brown. I'm like, "Oh, okay, godmother, let's go." So even more bigger than that, it's amazing. I'm here for it. So tell us a little bit about this imagery behind you. I would love to learn a little bit more about your framework.
This is my authenticity grid that's based on those 9 energies that I found within me.
Mhm.
And what I found, and I was 28 when the creation of this began, I found that I had three voices within me. And then about 15, 20 years later, maybe it was over 30 years later, when I had all my books written, one for each dimension, I traveled around the country and found that how I deciphered myself, others felt the same way about themselves. And it helped them to know themselves better. So now this grid is used to train people in all over the world. I have trainers in Suriname, Central America, to South Africa, China, Canada, Australia. So and we're growing. We're looking for more people to teach this too. So if you're in transition looking for something to do, you might want to reach out. but with coaches and speakers and leaders, can teach this. We're taking it now to corporate, and we're what I'm doing is doing different versions of it. So there's a version for coaches, a version for speakers, a version for facilitators, a version for parents. There's a lot of different versions. So,
Mm.
so basically, we all have an inner voice. Oh, remember right here that no one hears but us. That's the voice that whispers within you. We have an outer voice that you see right behind me, and that's how other people perceive you. You walk into a room, people make an immediate impression about who you are without knowing a bit about you. Just they look at what you look like. And then you have the expressive voice, which is who you have become in the world. And then over here you have think, communicate, and down here is do. And what that means is that to get things done effectively, it works best really when you first think about it, which is evaluate, consider, research, write, whatever. Communicate, and then that's sharing with yourself, with others, and the universe to communicate and get feedback. And then the do is when you go into action. You do something to make it happen. So things where I developed the think, communicate, do when I was directing Head Start programs, and I realized I was telling people what to do in their job without helping them understand why they were doing the job. And that's when I realized it really works best when I not only do it for myself, but also the people that I'm working with, help them think first and understand it, then communicate, and then do. So if you look at the grid, you have the vertical, which is inner, outer, expressive, and you have the horizontal, which is think, communicate, do. And then where they intersect is where you have what we call the dimension. So the vertical is the domain, the inner domain, the outer domain, the expressive domain. The horizontal is the dynamic of thinking, of communicating, or doing. And the boxes are dimensions. And so part of the message here is that all of us are multidimensional. There's many dimensions of us. And this is one way to look at the dimensions that, from my perspective, represent authenticity. So the think horizontal is things that were given to you at birth. Okay. So you were born with the sixth sense. That's your inner voice. And the intuition is all related to your six senses. You are intuitive by what you smell, by what you hear, by what you touch, see. All those things impact your inner voice and your ability to communicate with the world, and again with yourself, others, and the universe. The outer voice, think, is your DNA. It's net wellness. So I know the light's not as bright as it could be, but that's net wellness. And that means holistic wellness and balance, holistic. And so that means that it's not just in our society, in Western society, the doctors treat everything with chemicals. But your body's not made of chemicals. I mean, it is, but not the chemicals that they're giving you. Those are manufactured chemicals. And I, for example, took antibiotics for 40 years, messed up my body in many ways. So I caution people to use medicine, doctors for diagnostics, but holistic medicine more for treatment and looking at that. And then net wellness represents the net of all the things that cause wellness, which is your mental health, your physical, your exercise, your water, all of those things. And every dimension that I'm talking to you about impacts your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not in alignment with who you are, and even if you're not in alignment with your gifts and talents, then your mental health is off balance. And the
Right.
gifts and talents comes into the expressive voice over here. That dark one says legacy. And by
Mm.
legacy, I don't mean the legacy of income that you leave your heirs. I mean the legacy that was put in you when you were born. Who did God make you? What are the gifts and talents he gave you? Did he give you the gift of gab, the gift of drawing, the gift of running? You look around the Olympics coming up. Those are all different types of gifts. You look at your own gifts. Are you using them day to day? And this is where if you are not using your gifts on a regular basis, you probably got some mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
You're not happy. You're doing something someone else wants. You're living by someone else's dream, doing what they want you to do, not your own dream. So in the communicate one is how you communicate yourself to the world. And under inner voice, it's your values. And one of the questions I always ask people can you think of one value that as a society we all agree on? If we had that one value, we'd be a better society. So take that idea and put it in your home, put it in your relationship, put it in your home, put it in your children. help find out what's your community value, what's your work value, and then ask yourself, are you aligned with those values? And if you're not, you need to shift some things. So, and then also the question there is, are you as an adult still living your parents' values, or have you identified your own? I'm not saying it's bad to continue your parents' values, but just make sure that they are really your values. I was like 60 years old when I told my mother, I don't share your values. I had to
Wow.
realize, she really, I still have mink coats and diamonds from her when she passed, okay? Because that was her value. She wanted more mink coats and diamonds. I don't really care about those things. I care about making a difference in the world. So what's your value, and how are you living it? And if you're not living your value, then probably are your inner health, your mental health a little off balance. Right in the middle of the grid is network. I don't have mine. There's my light coming up. There it is. So
Okay.
that work has to do with abundance. I'm sorry, it has to do with your quality and quantity relationships. The people who you call whenever you need some good advice and someone you know will be honest with you, and those who just but you just might be quality down the road, and you have more quantity than you do quality. And like I was just in Detroit visiting, and I called some of my high school friends who are not quite quality because I don't talk to them all the time. They don't really know me now because we haven't been around for a long time. But they're definitely in my quantity because I can call them and we can get together and stuff hasn't changed. So you need
Mm.
both in your life. You need both. And then you have over on this side the integrity, the uh, likability, which is I first called it personality, but I now realize it's more rapport and how you build connection with other people, your ability to connect with people, because that's really what's missing so much, it's becoming void in our society because of the internet and because of social media, because people will communicate by phone and text before they'll talk to each other. And with AI coming in, it's getting worse. And they say that young people now don't speak up as much as my generation and other generations because you're not practicing it. I was at the airport yesterday and I see this at restaurants, and there's a kid sitting behind me, and all of a sudden he's fussing. Ah! He's fussing because mama took his phone from him.
Mm-hmm.
You sit in a restaurant, same thing. You keep the kid quiet by giving them activity. Don't listen to them singing. Tell them to go watch TV. Don't talk to them. Tell them to go watch this program on their phone. And so if you raise them with that, that's what they know. It's what they do. So spend more time in face-to-face conversation and communication. Help your children know how to express what they feel, know how to talk to something other than fingers on a phone. That's so important. Just like who would have thought that in 1972, did I mention that earlier about 1972?
No.
I didn't. Okay. So in 1972, they had the first study of the impact of violence on TV. TV had just been out for a couple of decades. It was mainly black and white, just turning to color. People were watching it more. A lot of money in buying TVs. So they wanted to know if we put violent programs on TV, what's it going to do to humanity?
Mm.
And the study said that the more violence that they put on TV, the more violence that occurs in society. So here we are 5 decades later, where there's now four generations raised on violence on TV, and the first few generations knew some of the difference, but today's generations don't know the difference. That there was a time when there was less violence, there wasn't mass shootings. Now there's so many shootings they don't even tell you about them. Okay, and the Surgeon General I just heard say today that number one cause of death of young people and adolescents is gunshots.
Mm.
Okay, so what happens with AI in 50 years? So tech and all these advances in society are great, but unfortunately, if the society that we're living in was one that, in my opinion, really cared about humanity, then when they had that 72 study, they would have put more positive things on TV rather than the opposite. So you have to be conscious, is what I'm telling you, and have a little wisdom about if I do this, what's that going to mean tomorrow? What's that going to mean in a year? What's it going to mean in 10 years? And that's why I love today's young people, because you guys seem to be far more open to coaching and to listening to your elders than my generation was. My generation was like, oh no, we're perfect. We don't need any coaching. We don't need anything. We're just fine. That's bull crap.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's more open now. So, and continue to do that, I suggest. And the bottom line, which you probably can't see too well, under the inner voice, it says inspiration. And that is that you're inspired by your inspiration. By the way, on the communicate side, you communicate who you are by your values, by people around you, and by how you connect with them. That's what that represents from an authenticity perspective. On the bottom line, the dimension of is inspiration, which means your drive. What drives you? Your
Hmm.
inner voice, or your inner voice of inspiration, or the outer voice of motivation. When I was doing this work and writing it, I had a speaker bureau, and a lot of people would come to me. I want to be the best motivational speaker, the next best speaker, and I would always say to them, "Is it truly motivational? Because motivation is outside coming in, and what you really want, mental health, is about inside coming out." Because outside coming in, too much outside coming in that's not managed well and not aligned well can cause mental health problems. So you have to be careful of really what you let in yourself, especially when you feel that you are a borderline, or you're in some stress and some challenge right now and you're trying to get past it. Don't let stuff come into you that is not healthy for you. Just block it. And if it comes in, just say, scratch that. Scratch that. Begin to have a communication with your inner voice. Your inner voice works with you. You can direct it and speak to it and ask it, tell it what you need, and then give it a chance to do it. But that need, this is like prayer, a similar thing, but it's not about I want a car. It's about the healthy thing, the mental health thing, or give me the direction, or give me a confirmation. Help me to see what's the next thing I should do, or the next thing I should not do, because that inner voice wants to give you that guidance. You have to ask, and you have to learn how to listen, and that
Hmm.
takes a little bit of patience. On the outer voice, the bottom one is net wealth. And we think of net wealth, we're taught to think that net wealth means money. And what we say in authenticity is net wealth is about abundance, about the things that bring you joy and abundance. I know people in the speaker industry, when I was in that industry, who had tons of money, but were not really happy. And when I was in Head Start, I met people who had no money, and they were the happiest I've ever met. So money is not the determination of what happiness and joy is. So you have to decide for yourself what brings you abundance and joy. And most people say it's their family, or their spirituality, their church, or their activities, or something. I've never heard anyone say it's money. And then the last one is lifestyle, which has to do with your day-to-day habits. So how do your habits support your purpose and support who you are? Are your habits those that support the next 40 years or 50 or 60 years you're going to live, and how you're influencing your children? Or do your habits reflect how important it is to get your nails done rather than how important it is to go read about something? So, and whatever you're doing, you're showing your children that. And so that last dynamic is about do. So you are inspired to do something. Your joy and abundance helps you to do something, and your habits, you're doing something. So those are the 9 dimensions of authenticity. There is an assessment you can take that will give you a score and help you. It'll just 9 questions, one on each of those 9 dimensions that I just talked about, and you will take that and you'll get a sense of where you're at. And then if you want to go deeper, I have programs that are designed to put you in a community of other people seeking authenticity. People tell me that what they love most about my community is that they learn how other people resolve similar situations. Because all you know is what you do, or some of the people around you. But maybe there may be others that can do something totally different and even more impactful for you. So um, taking the assessment will help you to do that. And I'm also looking for 2 or 3 new coaching clients who are ready to make a transition, who are really ready. They've been in the corporate world or whatever they've been doing, and they know they're tired of doing it. And they really want someone with a godmother, if you will, to help them make the decision about what should I really be doing next? What is God telling me to do next? And how do I make that transition so I can cash in on my authentic voice? So that's so. I'll shut up for a few minutes. So,
No, don't ever shut up. This is so good. I mean, and as you're going through your diagram, I'm relating it back to personal branding, what I do. And it's like such a huge overlap,
mm-hmm,
right? In terms of how you think about yourselves, how you present yourself, how others perceive you. Are you being true to who you are in your activities? Like all of it overlaps with kind of the things that I teach.
Yeah.
and help my clients through. So I love, 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 love it. So that tells me I'm on the right track, since you got 30 years in this thing. It shows me that, okay, what I'm teaching is definitely of value. There were so many things that you said that I want to just quickly touch on before we start to wrap up. I love what you said about motivation versus inspiration. I never really thought of it that way. How motivation is external and then inspiration is internal.
Mhm.
But I guess my question becomes, how do you take something that is external and make it internal? Because people sometimes need the external prompt.
Right, right.
So, is there a way in which you could recognize, like, okay, you know what, I am actually inspired versus motivated?
Well, you kind of have to grab hold of what's going to work for you. So, motivation, what people will tell me when they hear motivational speakers is that, yeah, that was great. What do I do next?
Mm,
So, inspiration means this is from my experience. This is what I did next, or I can look now. That motivated me to determine what I do next. So, you use that motivation to take some action. If you look at inspiration, and you can't see it, and net wealth in the outer voice are next to each other. So what we find is that when they're next to each other, they're connected in one way or another. So if you become more inspired, you also become more joyful,
yeah,
and
that
that
makes
helps mental health. Yeah.
yes, love it. Yes, yes. And then you talked about gifts,
Yes.
and making sure that you're using your gifts. And some people don't recognize what their gifts are. I didn't figure out my gifts. I was probably early, like mid-20s, when I realized, oh, this is my thing. This is my gift. And I'll tell you the quick story around it. I was always a writer. I was always writing. Writing as a kid, I used to write everything: stories, poems, songs, whatever. I just love words and writing and reading. And I wanted to have a business. I knew that from when I was 14. I had my first job, quit after 2 days. I was like, this can't be life. No way.
No
And
way.
so when I was older and it was time to, like, I graduated high school, I started college, and my mom's dream of me being a doctor was a bio major, hated that. So I was like, I need a business. What's my business gonna be? And I was grabbing at straws, doctor. I was oh, I'll type your papers for you. Oh, I'll sell Mary Kay. I'll do all these things. Meanwhile, my bestie was like, hey, can you help me write this resume? I was like, oh yeah, this is garbage. I got you. Let me fix this up. And I wrote her resume, and then I wrote another friend's, and then a friend of a friend. I was doing it all for free because I was good at it. Didn't realize this was my gift and this was my business that I had been searching for. I was searching all around the world, and it was right there in my lap. You're supposed to be writing.
Mhm. That is
And
so common in people because the gift is right there. But and it's a gift, so you don't realize it's also a way to your income source.
right, exactly. I went on to start a resume business, grew that over 13 years, became an industry leader, awards, books, all the things. And then I was like, all right, I'm done with that.
Right, right, right.
But I think the message here that I'm trying to put across to anyone that's hearing this is, sometimes your gifts are literally right in front of you. It's the things you take for granted because they are gifts. You don't recognize the power in them. It took someone else to tell me. One of my friends of friends of friends said, Mel, you're really good. You should charge. I'm like, that is not a thing. You cannot charge for writing a resume. What are you talking about?
Little did you know.
Little did I know, I was charging. Oh, I was busting up upside the head with the fees. Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it. And so, yeah, if you're looking for gifts, just think about the things you do naturally, because those are the things that other people struggle with.
Right. Well, I would like to refer your people to the work of Dr. Howard Gardner. So
Mm,
I use his work in that legacy piece. Dr. Gardner in 1983 published a book about the multiple gifts of intelligence theory. And he was looking to help teachers find different ways to teach students, recognizing that we all don't learn the same way, yet teachers all teach the same way. And he came up with 9, which I'm going to tell you in a minute. Get a pencil, everybody, so you can write them down. Areas of gifts and talents that what I say to people: if you are doing one of the top 3, So as I go through them, you can then, of the 9, kind of determine which of them are your top 3 gifts. And then ask yourself if you're using those gifts in your day-to-day life. Ideally at work. If not at work, then in your free time and or on the weekends. But somewhere you should be using those gifts as part of your life. And if you are unhappy in your job, then chances are you need to transfer into something that honors your gifts. So now Dr. Gardner gave us 9. Now I have taken his work and divided it, and I'm going to give it to you in the way I've divided it. And I've divided it into right brain gifts, left brain gifts, personality drivers, and things by society. So whether it's a quick lesson on right and left brain, everybody's right and left brain. The right brain is the more creative brain. And actually children are born right brain dominant. And that means they haven't learned. The left brain is trained. The right brain are things that you're born with. For example, visual. And some children are like to like colors. They like to draw. You see, I have a lot of color behind me, so I have some visual gifts. You can tell people like that because they're visual. The artists, the painters. So visual spatial is one. Another one is bodily kinesthetic, meaning you like to touch things, you like to dance or run around. Another one is musical. You like to tap, you like to sing, you like to make sound. And there's naturalistic. You like to be outdoors in nature. Those are right brain gifts. Left brain gifts are not always recognized until the child is 4 or more, because that's when they learn to read and they learn the things of the society. Right brain stuff is just you're born with. Left brain is what society kind of teaches, just more linear. Right brains go this way, they go all around. Left brains go this way, one way, straight, linear. And that has to do with verbal linguistic, and which you're high verbal by the things that you said, and also mathematical logical. You learn numbers, so those are left brain gifts. And then the personality drivers are interpersonal, meaning you love being around people, or intrapersonal, you prefer being by yourself, or you learn by being alone. And then the ones that are more society driven is primarily existential. Now, when Dr. Howard Gardner wrote this work in '83, he included all 9 of those. But if you were to research them, even now, if you research the multiple gifts of intelligence theory, you're only going to get 8 of them, unless you ask for his 9 gifts, because they're trying not to recognize. When I say they, the powers that be, whatever, are trying not to acknowledge existential, because that's the more wooey stuff. People that communicate with animals, you feel connected to the universe. You are in, well, anyway, the gifts and talents that are very existential, very different, very universal, universe connected, hard for linear people to understand because it's not tangible. Okay, so and then so anyway, those people are coming in as rainbow children, crystal children, indigo children. If you don't know those terms, look them up. Rainbow children is a term that's more popular now. And this means children are coming in very existential. Even their brains are built a little differently. And they have the ability to communicate. They'll tell you their purpose. I'm here because so-and-so. I'm here, whatever. Wow. So I could go deep into that on all of them, but we only have limited time. But if you look at those 9, and so ask yourself, where are you strongest? Where do you see yourself? Which of those 9 are you? And then, or look up Dr. Howard Gardner and just examine that. And that will help you understand yourself a little bit more.
Love it. Wow. Mm-hmm. I really love this work, the work that you're doing, because what I found is once you know, understand, love, embrace, and honor who you are, everything else falls into place.
Yes, it does, big time. This life is different. But when we try to impress others, when we're forced to or think we have to do what someone else told us to do, we're not living our own dream.
Yeah.
So, you have a right to your dream and you have a right to live it. And I encourage you to do that. The way life is going and society is going, with more restrictions seeming to be put on us or attempting to be put on us, it's really important that you connect with who you are, because that's the foundation of your personal strength and your own sanity, actually. I was one like you, Melanie. I said, I can't do that all my life. This is what they call life. I ain't doing that.
I'm doing that at all.
It was more challenging, but I think I'm healthy. I think I wouldn't even be alive right now if I had gone down the path that was being presented to me. because I was not aligned with it. It did not set with my spirit.
Right.
So what you do on the planet needs to set with your spirit, so you sleep well at night, and you feel that you're doing purpose, and you're moving life forward, not moving it back. It's hard enough for us as African American, especially as Black women, to really move forward. But part of that is because we're really that powerful. I call Black women the glue of humanity.
Mm.
Was a Black woman. They did the research in the last 5 years. They confirmed it that every person on planet Earth has the mitochondria. That's a piece of your cell, the mitochondria, that was from one Black woman in Africa 150 years, 1,000 years ago. Okay.
Mm.
So if you look it up, there's Eve was a Black woman. It was published in some of the magazines, and it's been confirmed. So we're all the same. We're all from the same source. And then also shortly after that time, there are Black Madonnas all over the world, and the Black Madonna is depicted as Mary and the baby Jesus. So
Mm.
why do so many countries have a Black woman? Europe has 26 countries that have Black Madonnas still existing. Philippines has 44 of them. So they're everywhere. Not in the United States as much, but that's how powerful Black women are. We're the glue that held together the babies of the plantation owners. We're
Right.
humanity's glue. So given artificial intelligence and given gifts and talents and all the ways we're being stripped of who we are authentically, Black sisters, it's part of your task and your godmother to do your part, to stay connected with your authenticity and help your children, especially the same, so the next generation can live life with confidence in who they are, and not just in who the robots that they're telling them to be, but to who they truly are. To make
Mm.
a difference,
I got goosebumps.
yeah.
I
Good.
really do. I do. I do. This is just phenomenal. I appreciate you so much,
Thank you. I
so
appreciate
much for
being
who
here.
you are and for being here and for spending the time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we go, we got one last piece of business. We gotta see what your shirt. Let's see
Oh,
what this shirt
sure.
got on. What you got? What you got on your shirt here? Hey,
Authenticity.
ah, I love it. Beautiful.
And orange. Orange is my color. You see me in orange. Whenever you see me, you'll see me in orange.
I did. I do. Yeah, I was going through your YouTube.
That's branding, okay? You miss branding. It's my
You
branding.
got to tell
That's
me twice. Mhm. I already know. I love it. Well,
yeah.
listen, if you are looking to really tap into your authenticity and really honor your true self, visit Dr. Hollis's website. Okay, normahollis.com. She has the quiz that she talked about. She has the community. She has coaching tools. Get with her, connect with her, and let's all really, really, really aim to embrace who we are. Because I really believe that the full essence of who we are is the key to everything that we want in life. So get with the godmother. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you again so much. And if you enjoyed this episode and you're listening right now, just go ahead and support the podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify. Leave a rating, leave a review, share it, tell a friend, right? That's all I'm asking. So definitely please support the Power Presence podcast as much as possible. Now, I just want to remind you before we go that the name of the podcast is Empowered Presence. That means that you have the power and the authority to be who you are, period. Just the state or fact of existing is powerful. So be who you are. And until next time, happy self marketing.
Thanks, Melanie.